Dear viewers, I hope that you are having a good day. As you may have noticed, this podcast by the Movimentazione Sociali, the introduction to it at least, is being done to you, not in our usual Maltese language, but we are now going to start doing and publishing on our YouTube channel once a month. This podcast, which has also been approved by the Central Committee of the Movimentazione Sociali, which will be done in the English language for those out there of you who perhaps take interest or would like to take interest in the mission of the Movimentazione Sociali, a social movement which is based fundamentally on the values of Catholic social teaching and the dissemination of said teachings. And so with this podcast, we hope and we aim to reach out to those who live in Malta, but who, for different reasons, may not understand fully the Maltese language, especially the certain complexities of the subjects that we discuss here. And so through these podcasts, which, as I said, will be done once every month, we hope to reach out to you, and also so that our message and our aims may be understood by you, and that perhaps you might also take interest in helping our movement in one way or another. As I said, these will be done on a monthly basis. So once and at the end of every month, we will be publishing on our YouTube channel one of these podcasts. Hopefully in the future, they might increase. We don't know. So this will be our first podcast today. Today is the last day of January when we're recording this. It will be published on the YouTube channel in the first week of February. And we hope that it will be a success and that you will take interest in what we have to say here.
Hi, welcome to MASpresso. MASpresso is the English language version of the main podcast of MAS, Movimentazione Sociali. As I said, in the English language, as well as it takes on a shorter format. So today we'll just be going with a bit of introductions as well as the main topics of the day. The format of the podcast will take on 3 main topics, as well as some general discussion. Topics surrounding Malta, so on the ground, locally what's happening, as well as things happening on the international platform and the way that people in Malta are viewing them, as well as the actual authorities and their takes. So as a brief introduction, my name is Juanita. I'm 25. I am very much interested in socio-cultural politics, as well as the way that one can marry them with religion. I'm also involved in the Movimentazione Sociali myself, and I'm here today with Dr. Benjamin Camilleri and Mr. Jake Muscat. Brief intros from your end.
Hi, many of you will already be familiar with my voice. I am a Maltese lawyer and activist with Movimentazione Sociali. I am a firm believer in Catholic social teaching as the best formula for a good nation, a good country to have, which is also at the core of the main beliefs of Movimentazione Sociali. So that is why I am an avid supporter of this movement. I hope that these podcasts in English will be successful in attracting a wider audience, and I encourage our followers to not just follow what we have to say, but also to delve deeper into the topics that we touch upon during the few minutes that we have here every month. So anyway, let's hope that this will be a success.
As you know, Benjamin, you will also be familiar with me. I am Jake. I'm 25 years old, and I'm also the public relations officer for the Movimentazione Sociali. I also take interest in national and international affairs, and also particular interest in the teachings of the Catholic Church, especially in the social sphere. And I also happen to believe that the teachings of the Church over the past 2,000 years has answered questions which are arising today. So I think that there is no better institution to guide society and nations than the Catholic Church and her teachings. And these teachings are precisely what we hope to include and disseminate in our programs here.
Okay, so going on to I think one of the hottest topics we had this week, we had Gozo Bishop Teuma discussing in his homily childcare centers, the nuclear family, raising children, and I think it raised a lot more, let's say, fanfare within the Maltese community. So we had various reactions coming from officials, members of parliament, as well as just, your average Facebook user. And with everyone having an opinion, it's really interesting to see the kind of negativity with which the homily was, let's say, absorbed. I can go on to you for your first reactions.
Yeah. So my first thought would be that anyone discussing this subject should, first of all, look up the actual homily. It's available on YouTube, and listen to it in its entirety. You can probably also find a written version of it online, but anyway, I saw it. I watched it on YouTube. It's just 13 minutes long. You can watch it on fast speed, so you don't even have to spend 13 full minutes. But do listen to it if you want to have an opinion about the subject. If you don't do that, I think you'll be susceptible to different opinions, and you'd be missing the main point of the homily, which was basically that children are a gift from God, and they're not property and should not be treated as such. The bishop was speaking against a mentality. He was never speaking against persons. He was speaking against a mentality that commodifies human beings, or sometimes even treats them as a burden, especially in the case of the very young. So he made a comment against the mentality of having the state taking on the role of the parents, especially with regards to very young children, under 2 years old. So that was the thrust of the homily, and that was the point of the comment that received so much negative press and attention. He was saying that it should be the parents who take care of the children and not the state. That was the basic point. Obviously, you can nitpick about the actual words he used, the actual language, whatever. Whenever a person is speaking in a live context, and he wasn't reading, he was speaking from the heart, you make use of the words that you have at the moment. And he felt that those were the right words. And to anyone listening to it in good faith, they made perfect sense. So please do go and watch it and judge for yourselves. But yes, I think much of the negative reaction is out of proportion, and maybe in bad faith as well. But maybe Jake will have something to say about that.
Yes, I think that the best thing anyone can do with regards to the homily of Bishop Teuma of Gozo is to they themselves see, hear, listen, understand what the bishop was trying to say with his homily, which, as Ben said, it's a short homily, so it won't take you much time to go through it. I think that one of the most negative things to come out of the homily, not the homily itself, but rather reactions to it, so to say, was the way in which it was reported by some media outlets. Some of them just simply took a statement said in an entire 13-minute homily and just used it as a headline on their social media posts as a sort of clickbait to try and gain as much viewership as possible. But obviously in doing so, you have no guarantee that people will actually go and read the entire homily and what the bishop was trying to explain through it. So we'll have a lot of misinformation and disinformation in some cases, where people just pass judgment on something which was allegedly said, but not in the way that it was said, so to say. So this does not create a good environment of understanding, so to say.
If I may also add something, if one had to look up what learned people have to say about the topic, they'll see that science, psychology, and human biology support what the bishop was saying.
Yes.
So he was correct,
Yes, exactly.
even factually speaking about this point. It's not just his opinion, it's
Yes.
scientifically correct.
Yes, in fact, much of what Catholic teaching with regards to the family, apart from the moral basis, it's also grounded in a natural law basis and in scientific basis. So it's not something that it's just thought up in an abstract manner, so to say, or for ideological reasons. In fact, the homily of the bishop is actually, one can say that it's a short abstract or a summary of what traditional Catholic social teaching teaches about the family, the nuclear family, and the role of the state with regards to how much it should or shouldn't intervene in the internal affairs of what Pope Leo XIII would call small societies. I think that it is unfortunate that many people have to send their children to be raised in childcare centers. This is obviously not to disrespect the workers of these childcare centers. They're not to blame for this. The problem is that the economic model which is practiced in Malta and in some other parts of the West, I think, has created a demand for parents who, by all means, do not send, obviously, every parent wishes to see more of their child. No parent wishes to see less of their child. But unfortunately, because of the realities which have come about due to our economic model, parents are being forced to send their children to childcare centers so that they can work long enough hours to then be able to feed them, provide basic necessities, etc. So I think what should be attacked is not the statement of the bishop, who is correct in all of his statements, I think, in my opinion, but rather that we should try to understand that what he was saying was not a criticism of childcare centers or childcare workers per se, or even the parents who send their children to childcare centers, but rather the economic model based on economic growth as an almost dogmatic
Metric
of success that has forced this reality upon society.
Yeah. But I think that's what's really interesting about it. Not even the bishop's actual homily, but the reaction of people. So we're saying here that he's talking about, he's trying to break down the disastrous economic model we built, but it's people that are slaves to this economic model that are actually defending it. So I saw comments from even women. So I think women struggle the most in this economy in the sense that they are mothers who can't be mothers because they're, stuck being wage slaves at work without the prospect of being at home with their children. As you were saying, no parent chooses to separate from their child.
And a lot of people actually agree with the bishop.
Exactly.
The comments.
Exactly. And it just shows how kind of upside down society is, that we are ironically now, as common people, defending the very system that is breaking us. And I think the reaction of people lately is kind of more interesting rather than the actual subject itself, because us three, for example, we all agree that Teuma is correct. But it's the reaction of people that surprises me the most, like the people that are very much struggling and burdened by the system. You end up defending it because that's the only way that you can survive. You don't have an alternative.
I read a comment, a post actually, written by a woman who's doing a PhD in this area, coincidentally, and she commented that she's speaking about women, we've become independent of our husbands, economically speaking, because we can work ourselves, we can earn a wage, sometimes even higher than a male, or many times actually. So we're independent of our husbands, but can we really call it independence if we're forced to work for someone else and prohibited from rearing our own children. So, I mean, that sort of gives you pause to think, right? I mean, is it really independence? Is it really empowerment? Is it really progress that we can't even have families being families anymore? So I think it's a mix of this economic model that also breeds a mentality as well, that work is, as I said before, the metric of success, or rather economic progress, whether it's the state or the individual, which I think is very antithetical to human flourishing, because human flourishing depends on many things, and it's not just the income you have or the hours you work or the career prospects you have and the progress you make in that field.
It's like the theory of Homo economicus, so to say, where the human being is reduced to just an economic figure in this machine, which aims to only increase GDP and make money, etc. And if you happen to get stuck in this machine and it's not working out for you, well, it's like tough luck for you, so to say, which is, I think, a very bad form of society that we're building, especially for families. Malta has the lowest fertility rate in Europe. So
no wonder.
And it's precisely because of this that it's happening. So regardless of what politicians will say about the freedoms which they have given over the past decade or so, and all the civil liberties and civil rights, but in actual truth, on the ground, where is the fruit of these so-called civil liberties? Because all that I'm seeing, at least, is a country which is losing its people slowly, who have an aging population, parents who are forced to send their children to childcare centers to be raised by the state and not by themselves, and also less and less marriages, and basically it's always a downhill slope, unless only one looks at the economic figures, which they always tell us are booming and everything is fine and dandy.
And it's so sad that people in power, instead of listening to what the bishop said and actually recognizing the fact that he's correct, and starting to realize that this trajectory that we're on is just destructive, instead of doing that, they piled upon him sort of insult, or rather criticism after criticism. I mean, why? He's telling you the truth. So stop and think and realize that, yes, we have made mistakes as a country and we need to turn back.
And I think that is where the church is at its most influential, when it says statements which are grounded in its 2,000-year teachings, but which are not necessarily comfortable to those who are governing at the present time, because it does not conform to their ideological needs, so to say.
But I think more so than who's in government, as in I agree totally with you that reactions from members of parliament were ludicrous. More so, what frightens me is the reaction of these pseudo-intellectuals that we see on the ground. For example, university professors saying that it's tal mistħija, that it's a shame to see such comments coming from a bishop. I mean, first thing, what position of authority do you have to say where the church speaks? Again, Catholic social teaching, and the church has remained what it is for all these years because it did not veer on its Catholic social teaching. It evolved with the times, but never changing the message. And that's what's important. And seeing these intellectuals that have kind of a high morality when it comes to the education of the country, it's very frightening. But it was also very encouraging, let's say, to see that, for example, certain Facebook posts, the comment section, were still very much in defense of the bishop. So you see that maybe times are changing, okay, but I think there's still a good segment of the population that is also very much understanding that we're not heading towards the right direction, as you were saying, Ben.
Yep.
Okay. Would you like to go into the second topic?
Yes,
go
so
ahead.
I think the second and third topic link together well. So the first topic, just the second topic, let's say, that we can delve into was the recent developments in America with regards to ICE. And let's say, the civil unrest that we're seeing, because we can call it civil unrest in America, and the high tensions. And it links also with the latest news from the government that they're considering Trump's invitation for the peace committee. And again, the local reactions we've been seeing that are very polarized. I mean, even if you open news portals, you'll see that the language, the semantics they are using is very much negative, or let's say clickbaity, to, veer left, intentionally veer left. So just maybe your initial reactions and what you see where we're heading right versus where we're heading wrong locally, as again the reaction of the country and where we should be aligning.
I think my first observation about all this is the charged language that's often used, as you indicated. I think if we had less of that and more nuanced takes, more precise takes, I should say, about what's actually going on, we'd all be better off for it. Unfortunately, when you use this charged language, you just amplify the emotions surrounding what's going on. And you get lost in the emotions, and that's very bad for discourse, because people just polarize, and it's all of a sudden it's this crusade for the left or crusade for the right, and it's only us who are correct, and the other side is completely wrong in everything, and we're completely correct in everything. And then we start having our martyrs, as happened recently. So people who get hurt or unfortunately even killed turn into some kind of mythical. They take on sort of mythical proportions, like some kind of saint for their cause. And it's this snowball effect that continues amplifying and
polarizes.
Right? Yes, exactly. This polarization that it just needs to stop. If we are going to have a civil discussion about what's going on, we need to do away with all the emotionalism and just discuss the facts. So, what are the facts? So, in summary, obviously now we don't know exactly what's going on, but at least from what I can deduce, from what I can observe, obviously the Trump administration is cracking down on illegal immigration. That was a campaign promise, and he's delivering on it. ICE is the government agency that enforces immigration law, amongst other things. And so it's an extension of the government. It's not like some kind of private vigilante entity or whatever people think it is. It's the government, basically. So they're like the police in a way. And they search for people who are illegally residing in the United States, and they remove them from the country. They deport them, which is what every country in the world does. We do that in Malta, by the way, regularly as well. When they catch illegal immigrants, we have various occasions where this happens
and the police
regularly.
Post it on Facebook.
Yeah, they post it, and
it gets votes. After all.
Yes. It's the normal way a country deals with people who are illegally staying in its country. Yes. Even the Vatican does this, by the way. Even the Pope does this in his own country. So there's nothing untoward or special about what Trump is doing in its essence. Now, obviously, there were some cases where there seems to have been, or it is alleged that there was an excessive force applied. Obviously, if there was really an excess, then it's wrong. It's condemnable. Everyone can agree with that. You can do your job without using excessive violence. And if you use excessive violence, then it's wrong. Pure and simple. But the truth is that it's not happening in a vacuum. And even those violent incidents didn't happen in a vacuum. There's a very, very strong leftist agitation going on in the United States that's constantly demonizing ICE and attacking the agents themselves on a personal level. There are many of them who are actually run over or were going to be run over by vehicles, receiving threats, insults, and this violent context is the one that the ICE agents have to live in when they're doing their job. It's literally their day job. So there were a couple of instances, yes, where they were trying to enforce the law as their job demands, and they were being heckled or obstructed by protesters. And this is going on across the board constantly. We've only heard about a couple of cases, but this is going on every day. Imagine doing your job, and every single day, apart from the stress of the job itself, and it's quite stressful, you're being attacked by everyone you meet in the street, protesters, people throwing stuff at you, people trying to run you over, and you're just trying to do your job. So that's the context in which these two incidents happened, the violent ones, I mean, which was unfortunately resulted in the death of a couple of people. No, I'm not justifying it. I don't even know what the actual facts are. Nobody knows. If we will ever know, it will be through an actual investigation that I believe should be done. And if the government is hindering that, then it's wrong as well, by the way. So yes, there should be an investigation in both cases, and in any case of alleged violence or whatever. But we need to know the facts, and we need to know the context, as I've just described. So piling our insults against ICE, which I see occurring constantly on social media, is just plain wrong. I mean, they're people, they're government agents, they're doing their job. It's a good job that they're doing. There's nothing wrong in it. If there were some of them who exceeded the limits of reasonable force required, then that's wrong. I mean, so what? So what? It's wrong, but it happens all the time. Police do it, unfortunately, sometimes. What do? We disband the police force? We disband the army if there's a case of excess? No. Government workers do it as well, maybe. I mean, we've all heard cases about abusing one's privileges on the job. So what? Do we just fire everyone and disband the government itself? It just doesn't work like that.
Yes, I completely agree with what Benjamin said. I think that, as with the case that we just mentioned of the bishop's homily, this is in terms of how people perceive it. It's a similar case, in the sense that blanket statements are thrown, ICE agents show violence, ICE agents kill X, Y, Z, etc. And unfortunately, it does not give people the impression that it was a complicated matter, so to say. So blanket statements on social media dictate the truths which the people will then believe and further throw fuel into the already increased agitation which there is in the United States with regards to ICE. As Benjamin said as well, these agents are government workers at the end of the day, and they're doing their job. That's what they're paid for. There's nothing out of this world about what they're doing. Mind you, under the Obama administration, there were far more deportations than there actually currently are under the Trump administration. And there was not nearly the same amount of agitation as there is currently. I think that any form of excess violence, be it from agents or be it from protesters, has to be condemned, and investigations should be done. However, I think it is not exaggerated to state that there are a number of groups within the United States, and I say that they are left-wing groups primarily, which are seeking to undermine the works of the Trump administration when it comes to deporting illegal aliens in the United States. And I think that it is very reckless of them to try and obstruct these agents who are trying to do their job. And then the results, we see them on the television, the results at least that we see. Because who knows how many there are which we do not actually hear about, unfortunately. But it's unfortunate to see that ideological agitation, which then results in the deaths of a number of individuals, obviously, which could have been totally avoided. I think that what this teaches us is that, at least from my observation, is that we should not let, so to say, this type of ideological, almost quasi-religious viewing of political ideas. The same can obviously come from the right. Obviously, I'm not solely condemning the left wing for what they're doing. So even those who say that these people sent by Trump do nothing wrong, Trump never does anything wrong, that's also a form of ideological extremism, so to say, which should be condemned. However, what needs to be understood is that we need to let reason function. And when I say this, it means that we should not just state blanket statements and pass out judgments about information which we do not actually have and we do not know. So I think that it's unfortunate that there were deaths. It's unfortunate that there are political agitators who are impeding these agents from doing their jobs. And I think that at the end of the day, what we have to do is try to put aside certain political blinkers, so to say, which sometimes we find it common here in Malta, so we shouldn't really go all the way to the United States for this. But it's something common throughout, I think. And it's an unfortunate reality of politics, which unfortunately is also on the increase, I think.
I think it's very frustrating to see that first of all, that America's heading again towards civil unrest. I mean, we had a whole summer of Black Lives Matter, and we saw how the, let's say, like you were saying, the anointing of sainthood towards one victim, or let's say one bad circumstance, does not justify then such actions. So I feel like we learned nothing from what we experienced, and it's a big shame because, again, violence can never be, it's never okay, but neither is, burning and impeding authorities that, again, are human like us. I think we really suffer from as let's say, if we're looking at right and left, that the right is always vilified, that it kind of strips the humanity, because, for example, deportations, we're stripping the humanity of these people, but the left does that equally too. And you see it a lot recently. So you're stripping kind of the humanity of these people that are going to work every day, but kind of you're also stripping the humanity of migrants, because there's legal channels and illegal channels, and violence on both sides is incorrect without a doubt, but having a country and trying to regulate it is a much more difficult feat than people think. So it's easy being a keyboard warrior at home and saying that ICE agents should not have shot the person in the car or shot the person in the street, but
let's see what you would do when someone is driving towards you.
If someone is threatening your life, tell me what you would do, because it's fight or flight at that moment, and it's very easy to condemn the actions of one. But if you've never been in that situation and you live a very comfortable, and you can say privileged life, because we talk about privilege a lot, and the left harper on about this, but you are living a privileged life if you're, let's say, born in America and you come from a well-off family. You're privileged, it's true, but that does not give you the right then to misuse that privilege and either abuse or commit acts of violence. So that's what the left would say that maybe ICE are doing, but also in inverse, impeding people's daily jobs and putting their life at risk as well as their own life at risk. So people who are attending these protests and are hindering ICE are kind of risking a lot, because, again, you're hindering something that, like you were saying, a branch of the government.
Yes.
So you're playing with fire, essentially.
And an armed branch of the government.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know about you, but if I see a law enforcement officer, let's talk about Malta, a police officer subduing a person in the street, first of all, I would have no idea what the context is. I would assume that person is a criminal. Maybe not. Maybe they're completely innocent, and it's the policeman in that case who's exceeding the limits of reasonable.
That would be up to investigations
but
to verify.
It's not me, like the person in the street, to get involved and try to play the hero and stop the enforcement of the law. Just because I think it's the right thing to do at that moment. I mean, there are other proper channels. There are constitutional methods to go about it, and legal methods to go about it. So you are playing with fire. If you see an armed officer enforcing the law and you obstruct that, or you get in the way, you are playing with fire. And I'm sorry that the result has been that a couple of people have died, but you shouldn't go there. Just stay on the side. You can film them, yes, but don't go in the middle of it.
Exactly.
Don't go in the middle of it. That applies to anyone, really, but it is also true that the left loves this drama because
Of
it
course.
gives fuel to their fire, you know,
Yes.
and it gives legitimacy to their mantra that Trump is this dictator and that they're the resistance, sort of like, you know, fighting against the Nazis and
Legitimizing,
whatnot.
defunding the police and all that. that
Exactly.
stuff.
It's just adding fuel to their fire, and they love it. I know they do. I mean, it's clear that they do, because if they didn't, they would scale down, not scale up the rhetoric.
And this was very much visible. For example, the day after Charlie Kirk died, so they were kind of commenting, people on the left, not they as a generic they, but for example, when George Floyd died, you know, we saw looting, we saw burning, and people were saying now that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we're going to see the same. But all we're seeing were rosary
Vigils.
rallies,
Yeah.
vigils
But even
across the country. The
cer-
difference is
very-
palpable.
very-
certain
true.
comparisons being made are nonsense, in my opinion, utter nonsense. Charlie Kirk, for instance, he wasn't killed harassing an officer. He was simply at
Exactly.
a university campus speaking his mind.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, we don't have to agree with all that he says. We don't agree with all that he says.
Of course.
But the contexts are totally different. You have, on the one hand, agitators going at armed forces of these ICE agents, so to say, who are there doing their job. On the other hand, you have an individual who was speaking his mind and who was shot on the spot.
Yep.
So it's
It's not comparable at
it's
all.
totally different. So it's utter nonsense for those who are comparing the two.
I think the heart of the matter is that the left is objecting not just to perceived excesses by ICE, they're objecting to
The fundamental work.
fundamental
Fundamental work.
mission
Yes,
being done by ICE, which is
excesses
the
are-
enforcement of
yes.
immigration law, and that is what they really
The
want.
violence is as a result of their agitation. in
Definitely,
fact.
and that is what they are agitating against.
So-
It's the violence is just part of it. It's just the
So
part of the drama.
If there was no leftist agitation, there would be drastically less violence. I
For
believe.
sure, for sure, for sure. But we need to call out this fact that the left are mostly protesting against the enforcement
The
of
legality
of
immigration
it.
law.
Yes.
So it's so completely unrelated to what happened to Charlie Kirk, which is just an illegal murder. You just can't put them on the same plane at all.
Perfect. Maybe just we can close off with one of the final topics, which was Trump's call to be involved in his peace committee and reactions locally. So we saw a lot of people on, again, Facebook commenting, you know, finding it ludicrous that Trump, of all people, is talking about peace because of what happened recently
You'll
in
find
Venezuela.
many professors on Facebook.
Exactly, Greenland, etc. But I think it's very interesting to see that an opportunity lies and what we kind of are going to make with it. So I don't know what your initial reactions were, maybe.
I think recently Prime Minister Roberta Bella commented about this subject,
Yes.
and also in relation to the position of the EU and the position of Malta. And I think I actually agree with much of what he stated, that he has to put the interest of Malta before the interest of the EU. So I think in that sense, there's a lot of logic in it, so to say, with regards to Trump's peace committee or board or whatever it is.
Peace board.
Board, sorry.
Peace board. I think even the Pope was invited on it.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if he has yet given him a reply on it.
I think they said they're considering the options, but I
So-
don't think they replied formally yet.
I honestly don't think that it's such as a big deal as some people are making it out to be. Then again, I think even if people somehow post a photo of Trump cutting down apples from trees, they will say that Trump is hurting the environment by cutting down apples from trees, and they'll twist it in that way for some reason. But that's my opinion, at least, I think. With regards to this peace board that Trump is setting up, I'm not really fully aware of what he intends to do with it, because it's just a peace board. I don't know what the outcomes of this peace board actually aim to be. But again, I think in my opinion, I mean, if countries want to join it, they can join it. If countries don't want to join it, they don't join it. No one is forcing them to join his peace board at the end of the day. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks, we've heard about the Greenland mantra again, which I think is quite ludicrous coming from Donald Trump. Regardless of the good that he does in internal policies, I think that this is a policy which I think will do more harm than good, I think, especially to the movement that he has, I wouldn't say created, but has fueled at least, and given a lot of voice, so to say. But then again, as I said, he wants to set up a peace board, a board of peace or whatever it is. Quite frankly, I think if he outlines what he wants to outline with regards to what he aims to do with this board, then we can verify better if it's worth it or not. But then again, I don't see it as such a big issue as some people are making it out to be personally.
Oh, sorry, would you like to go ahead first?
I think we need to keep in mind that this peace board is actually a child of the United Nations. There was a vote in the United Nations and they voted for the creation of a peace board to manage the Gaza problem, basically, to have an international force there. And this board sort of overseeing what's going on to try and obviously ameliorate the situation there. So the United Nations was in favor of this. Russia and China didn't object, although they abstained, but they weren't against it either. And the USA took it upon itself to take the charge, basically, and create this peace board. So the approval has been given by the United Nations, but Trump is sort of crafting this peace board by himself.
In his own image.
Yes. In fact, apparently he's going to be president for life of the same
board. Which is what he always does.
Yes, Trump being Trump, basically. So yes, you can criticize the fact perhaps that it doesn't have a very specific or limited scope, as the United Nations seems to have had in mind. So the United Nations resolution is talking about a peace board to manage the Gaza situation. Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, it even had a time limit of 2 years for its existence.
The remit.
From the United Nations. But this peace board being crafted by Trump, supposedly to fit into this United Nations resolution concept of a peace board, seems to be a bit different because it doesn't seem to be limited to the Gaza issue. Some are speculating that it can be a sort of parallel United Nations with countries taking decisions about the future of the world in a separate forum to the United Nations. It's interesting that the European Union as a whole and European countries as a whole are rejecting the idea. France, most notoriously, rejected it, but even other major European nations, even Italy. So it's complicated. And yes, as far as I'm aware, they're rejecting it specifically because it's not very clear whether Trump intends to simply honor the United Nations mandate or go beyond that. So, I mean, it's an open question, really. Maybe it's too premature to decide to join right now. Yes. Maybe it would be premature to reject outright. Probably the best opinion would be to just wait and see, in my understanding.
Bouncing back on, I think, both your inputs. On the West, we suffer a bit from very much like a fear of American expansionism, which is healthy, because I don't think that any form of expansionism of that type is something that we should aim for. And America under Trump has had certain aspirations, but I think we forget that expansionism coming from other areas, both in economic terms, soft powers, etc., from China, Russia, Turkey, in certain instances India, are also equally concerning for us. So it's not just, the fear that it's big bad America coming for us, but it's also, the classic, let's say, other powers. And we should look at America from a very bad light, and I understand that certain things that Trump has maybe said or the way that he conveys his ideology is not always met with, welcoming arms, and I understand it because Trump has a certain way of putting things that even if you agree with him, you end up getting frustrated.
Yes, true.
But I think the West should cut the US some slack in certain things, and we're on the same page. So France, for example, being very skeptical about this, I understand, but France is also the country that called NATO brain dead up until a few years ago. So kind of seeing where you want to lie. So do you want a defense system that's common for the EU, or do you want to look at it from a different lens? I mean, Malta's a neutral country as well. So
yeah. There's also another issue. I mean, what is the alternative? So in this specific case, the United Nations has voted for this peace board. Did Europe come up with an alternative structure for a peace board? As far as I'm aware, I don't think so. I mean, can it come up with one? Would it be better than Trump's proposal? Maybe it would. But as far as I know, they're not doing that. So I know Russia had an alternative idea, but it was voted down or didn't manage to pass through the United Nations channel. So Trump's passed, and that's what we have right now. Maybe we can test it out, see whether it succeeds in Gaza, and then discuss its future after that. But I think it's too early to say. And whether it's a blanket condemnation or a blanket embracing of it, it would be premature either way, in my opinion. But time will tell, I guess.
Yes.
Perfect. I think that's all the time we have for today. And thank you so much to both of you for joining. It was a very fruitful discussion. To our followers and listeners, I hope that you enjoyed our first edition of MASpresso. And I hope that you'll be joining us for our next podcast that will be out next month. Keep following us through our social media channels to see any updates. And you can find our podcast as well on YouTube. Thank you very much.